Yo, Sixer Nation, what is good? 3 more days till the NBA trade deadline. We have some interesting Sixer news today. A lot of trade rumors. Things are heating up. Could the Sixers make a move in order to propel them towards championship mode? Well, guess we're going to find out. The first domino has fallen in the NBA. Everything else getting ready to go. We are back with a trade show. And I am joined by a very special guest, RB and Austin Krell, Sixers beat reporter, NBA writer, one of the best in the game. Back joining the show again. Austin, how you feeling, man?
Well, you can never get enough sleep during this time of the year. And right now I'm just trying to find sleep where I can get it. And checking in on all the latest stuff. It definitely, you think you're about to write about something, and then something else comes out that puts what you were going to write to no point, and just a lot of stuff at all times. So
yes, sir, man. Well, I appreciate you coming back on the show. Appreciate your time. I will say the last news I expected today, not the big trade news, but the news that happened today that broke, and that is Furkan Korkmaz, of all people. Furkan Korkmaz requesting a trade per Keith Pompey. Korkmaz, who obviously has another year left on his deal after this one. He had signed a 3-year, $15 million deal. And, well, I just want to get your reaction. I actually predicted that Furkan would get moved at the deadline, but I didn't see him requesting a trade. Really, Furkan? End of the bench player? Guy that hasn't played essentially all year. He said, I'm out. What is your take on Furkan Korkmaz and his trade request?
So I think, number one, him being traded was always somewhat likely, because number one, just the salary. He makes $5 million. Sorry, I'm looking at my salary sheet right now. He makes about $5 million. So that was always a likely candidate to be moved. And you watch him on the bench. Obviously, he doesn't look overjoyed to be, essentially a guy who shakes a towel every time someone does something good. And so I can understand where he's coming from. Ultimately, though, he's had opportunities to produce. He's never produced meaningfully, and except for the year where they went in the bubble and lost. He didn't make them. He didn't make the most of those opportunities, and he's a shooter who has a little bit of creation ability, but it's still, he's not good enough at any other one thing to justify the fact that his jumper just hasn't been very good for the last year or two. So I understand why he would want out for an increased opportunity. That being said, I don't know that he deserved. He earned. I don't know that he has a case that he should have earned more playing time.
He's a superstar, man. Hey, welcome on into Philly Take with RB, by the way, presented by Manscaped. We have Austin Krell here giving his take on Furkan Korkmaz. I'm just like, I was surprised to see him request a trade, but it didn't surprise me that it didn't work out with the Sixers. This guy's a former first-round pick, and it feels like over and over and over again they give this guy a chance. Let's not forget, he requested a trade a couple years ago. He won it out. Everybody loved Furkan after he hit that buzzer beater against the Trailblazers. And, he requested out at one point, and somehow he ends up getting a 3-year contract, and, he just never fit back into the rotation. And now he hasn't been in it at all. It's been months. So tell me, what do the Sixers do now? Do they move him for nothing? Is he included in part of a bigger trade? Obviously, we'll get into that here, but, does he have any value at all? Will anybody be willing to take on that contract?
So I think the extra year makes it a little bit more unappetizing or unappealing for teams to look at as something that they would want. I do think that you would probably package him with the likes of a Matisse Thybulle, with the likes of a real asset, like a Paul Reed maybe. I think Paul Reed and Shake Milton are I'm like, this isn't reporting anything, and this is just my opinion, but I think they are underrated trade assets at this point because they make so little money. You know, they there's some upside to tap into there for Paul Reed. For Shake Milton, he's proven he's a decent bench guard. So I think there is something there that maybe if you find the piece you really want, um, those guys could be, assets to a team. But you're looking at a scenario where it's going to be, Furkan plus a Daniel House, Furkan plus a Jaden Springer, Furkan plus a Matisse Thybulle to get a piece that you really want if that trade does indeed exist.
It's interesting when you talk about that. Yeah, you're naming these players, and I'm like, yep, former first round pick, no development. I mean, at some point, when did the Sixers look at themselves, right? Like, they can't develop a first round pick. The barely any of the picks go through the whole process. And right now, I'm struggling with the fact that Jaden Springer, I still don't understand why that pick was made. It just seems like there's many guys that seem to come up where they just don't pan out here. Do you think that's a lack of talent development? Do you think that's a lack of drafting personnel here? What do you think is the main cause of these players not being able to work out here in Philly?
So I just think like they weren't that good players. Like you look at like you look at Furkan's developmental arc. Like he had one good season. He was given chances to be good. He was not a good enough shooter, and that was the one thing that was supposed to stabilize his value to a real team. And Matisse, I think, has had good moments, and he's been a good regular season player for this team. Having said that, his offensive game just hasn't developed enough, and he's largely an unwilling shooter. Teams sell out on him in the middle of the floor because they're not afraid of him making threes. And they're willing to live with that if that's the outcome. So, I do think it is an unfortunate thing that they didn't develop, but I can't say that I'm like surprised that Matisse Thybulle, after 4 years of college, the same knocks that were coming out then are still there. Like when you're 22 and you played in college for that long, there's a reason that you haven't left.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's because you want to get it. You want to pursue your free education, which is fine. Good for you. But if your value is high enough, you're just not going to just stay because the risk of an injury is legit. And if you get injured, you don't want to lose out on that money. So you're going to leave if your stock is moving up, and his was, 4 years tells me a lot,
Yeah.
Furkan, he came in here a little younger, but, it was just the same thing year after year. So I'm not surprised. And truth be told, you shouldn't be upset if those guys are not necessarily, making your playoff rotation. That means that you have a very good team,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm just, wondering about, some of these pieces. For example, you keep Furkan on the roster, you go and you get rid of Isaiah Joe, you get rid of Charles Bassey. It feels like guys that could have helped out with this team. And right now the Sixers are in a position where, I feel like they can contend. I think they need a couple ancillary pieces, but I think this is the best core that the Sixers have had around Joel Embiid throughout his career. And it's been a weird season. They started out on a disaster and then they come back, they win 20 out of 24. I feel like Sixer fans are confused about where they're at this point. They lose some of these easy games and then they go and they win a big one on primetime against the Nuggets. So I guess my question to you is, where do you view this team? Where does this team view this team? What's the mindset going in the next 3 days? Is it, we have to get something done? Is it, we're fine either way? What is the mindset of Daryl Morey and the organization right now?
Well, I think it helps that you just blew a 21-point lead to the Knicks, and your best player was plus $1 million when he was on the floor, and then the team was minus $1 million and one with him off the floor.
Minus 15 in 3 minutes for Trez, right?
Yeah. I think like we've all come to the understanding, the realization that, Montrezl Harrell just isn't going to cut it in the playoff lineup. Like, I get it. He's a decent offensive big man. Having said that, there's a reason when he comes into the game, suddenly teams are like, oh wait, we could attack the middle of the floor and get to the rim, and there's no one near us because he's out of position.
Yeah.
And even when he is in position, he's undersized, not that long, so teams can score. So good players can score over him. If he does happen to prevent a shot, it's often a whistle that he's getting instead. He's getting called for a foul. So you're just not going to get the defensive, aptitude that you need out of Montrez. And that isn't to say, and and you look at Paul Reed, that isn't to say that Paul Reed is, a good or a bad player. It's that we largely don't really know yet, because this is the most minutes he's played in his NBA career. Maybe there is some untapped consistency potential to get to if he gets a more consistent role with another team. But the fact of the matter is, the Montrezl Harrell job was there for the taking, and he hasn't done enough to take it. And I think in some respects he deserves a better look. In other respects, he just simply hasn't been that good with the minutes he has played. So it's hard to be overly, critical of the way that's been handled. I think ultimately what has to happen is they're going to have to stagger their core four. But I will say that, there is, Maxey not being quite at the same level he was last year makes that a little more complicated. But overall, they so obviously need a backup big man. It's so obvious. They need somebody who can be a vertical spacer next to Harden in those minutes where Harden is staggered away from Joel. They need, they need to have somebody who can rebound. The rebounding is terrible. It was terrible last night. Part of why they lost the game, because they're terrible rebounding when the game was on the line. They need another rim protector, because you need to perturb teams from getting to the basket. Teams often against the Sixers with Joel on the floor would turn into jump shooters because they know they can't get all the way to the basket. And with that being the case, you do want to have a rim protector, so that way the lid doesn't just come off the basket as soon as Joel checks out.
Yeah.
And you don't want them to be, you don't want opponents who are down 15 whatever points and after Joel leaves to suddenly find their rhythm and their momentum and punch back. And I think a lot of what has happened recently is Joel leaves the game, team scores a quick 4 or 5 points in a minute, and then the Sixers are all out of it on offense, and then suddenly the doors are open.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that Toronto Raptors series where Boban Marjanovic or Greg Monroe would come in for 1 minute and then boom, -8, -10, -11. That can't happen, obviously. And I mean, in terms of where I think the Sixers should be is, you have to make a move. You have to make a move, because this team is at least shown they are more capable right now of going deeper in the playoffs, because you have an all-star version of James Harden, because Joel Embiid continues to play on this asinine level. And now you don't have the problem, hopefully, of a guy that can't shoot in the playoffs. So, this team has been a lot better in terms of construction, but they still need another piece. And I would be led to believe that they have to make a move, right? They came into the season with an open roster spot. We sat here before the season. I remember trying to predict who was going to make it. They ended up cutting both guys. They left a roster spot open, which, led them to say, okay, we're going to be active in February. They said this before. I think they have to make a move. And that kind of brings me to the next guy. And I want to get your thoughts on the Matisse Thybulle thing, because we kind of hit on it. And there have been multiple rumors in the last week. The Kings are interested in Matisse Thybulle. The Hawks are interested in Matisse Thybulle. The Warriors are interested in Matisse Thybulle. I think the guy has value outside of the Sixers. Now, I would love to hear your take on that, but I do want to say it doesn't make sense, right, to keep Thybulle past this deadline if you're not going to end up playing him, because it's a contract year, and at that point, you're not getting any value. And is he going to play in the playoffs? On a whole different subject, I don't know what the heck has happened with Matisse Thybulle. I mean, before the season, we sat here and you reported from training camp saying that, he was the most improved, and those are the types of things they were saying. He's going to be better this year. He had a better jump shot for him, all that stuff, yet he still can't really crack the floor consistently. So I personally believe they either have to move him or play him. What is your take on the whole Thybulle thing, and do you think he'll get moved?
So I think a couple of things. First, they're always going to say that he was this vastly improved offensive player at a camp because it's a fresh slate, a new season, build him up, you know. And everyone looks better in practice than they do in a real game. Like they just do. Guys make open shots in practice that they don't make in games because that you know, you're running up and down the floor. There's no crowd in front of you. There's a lot less pressure. And so, of course, of course, the team was going to say that. Now, I will say he, in theory, is a valuable player. You know, he's a all NBA second team defender. Those are in theory very valuable players. Problem is, what it comes down to is he, in most cases, for a team that has plans to win a championship, he just isn't going to be a rotation player or even a heavily, if he is a rotation player, not going to be a heavily used player in the playoffs, because what it comes down to is you're largely playing 4-on-5 because the helper is going to be trained to take away the most, to help. The helpers are going to be trained to take away your best offensive options, and Thybulle's man's always going to be shading towards the guy who is the most dangerous, because Thybulle, they're okay without taking open threes. They know he doesn't believe in himself. They know his team doesn't believe in him that much, obviously, and so that's a problem. It doesn't make him a bad player. That doesn't make him an unvaluable player on the other end of the floor. It just means that he's not. He can't be a fixture of a rotation for a team that has championship aspirations. So yeah, I think a team like Sacramento could be, an interesting candidate for him. The problem that we're coming here with is this becomes: do the Sixers want to extend him long term? If they don't, then they're gambling against the prospect of losing him for nothing in the offseason. That, and theoretically, it would lower what teams are willing to pay, because they know, look, you're desperate to get, if you don't want to bring him back, you're desperate to get off of him. So There's that. There's also the fact he doesn't make that much money. I think it's $4 million for him. So hard to package that together to come up with a package that teams want that make you better. And sure, we can talk about how, there's 20 something teams out there that might have interest in him at his salary level. What are they willing to give back? And does that fit what the Sixers want? The answer is most teams don't have what the Sixers would be interested in terms of just need. And so it makes for, a much more difficult situation in that respect. Now, there's also the issue of the tax that everyone has, there've been various reports they would like to get under the tax. I know fans don't like to hear that tax, who cares about tax? Owner pays the salaries and he's the one who cares about tax. And if owner cares about tax, fortunately it matters. It matters because it's going to dictate in some respects what the team is going to do at the deadline. So at $4 million, you're already operating under the constraints of teams think we don't want to bring this guy back next season, and that lowers our bargaining power. This guy's salary is only $4 million. That lowers the bargaining power. So also the tax. So this means that their ownership, at the very best, is suggesting that they try to get $1 million about below than what take back $1 million less than what they're bringing in, or what they're giving out. So those are all things that combine to make it a difficult scenario. To see what they're going to, what they're going to bring back and how that's going to add value to their team. Fortunately, as I sit here, I don't know that they have a ton of gaping flaws in their roster. Like, this team is 34-18. They're 2 games out of the 1 seed in the East. They're a game and a half out of the 2 seed. Like, they're in a really good spot, regardless of what they do at their deadline. The name that I think is most intriguing to me is Jared Vanderbilt. That's the name that is front and center on my short list of trade candidates. He's very available. It sounds like he is likely to be packaged with Malik Beasley in the Jazz's ideal world. So that makes things a lot more complicated for the Sixers. But they do have a couple of valuable draft assets. They have the Charlotte 2023 second round pick that figures to be like 33 to 34.
Yeah.
They have a first rounder, and those are, those are good draft assets. I'm not saying that Jared Vanderbilt's worth a first rounder, but if you were to throw, the Charlotte second round pick and then a heavily protected first rounder in 2020, I forget what year it's from.
I think it's 2029, right? Or 27.
I forget. I don't remember. Yeah, I think it's 2029. So if you throw that at the Jazz, it's heavily protected, might convey as a different pick down the road. Maybe, just maybe, they have interest in that. I think that would be a pretty decent, trade core in terms of getting value back.
Gotcha. So that's your kind of trade target. That's who you would look at. Obviously, there's been rumored interest from the Sixers. There's been names like Jared Vanderbilt. They said the Sixers were inquiring about Nerlens Noel. One guy that I'm huge on as well, in addition to those names, is Andre Drummond, a former Sixer who knows the system. And apparently today there was a rumor, as I pulled up from a Chicago writer, who said that the Bulls were actively shopping Andre Drummond. So, there are names out there to be had. Like you said, it kind of comes down to the compensation in terms of what do the Sixers want to give up? And that's really what I'm wondering. Again, going back to my other point, where do the Sixers view this trade deadline? Is it an imminent, we need to go get someone? Because like you said, I don't think Montrez is going to hold up in the playoffs. And we know Paul Reed is not going to end up finding his way in consistently. I mean, he did last year, but for some reason he's just not in the cycle, same thing with a Thybulle. So could the Sixers go out and package a Matisse Thybulle? Could they, package maybe a Jaden Springer, a draft pick, go out and get one of these guys? What about an Andre Drummond? There are names out here. Can the Sixers get one of these done? Do you think it is imminent on their plate that the organization is saying, okay, we have a real shot here, let's go get one of these guys?
So I think introducing the Jaden Springer trade asset makes sense. Like, it always makes sense to, look at Jaden as a young guy with a lot of development to go. Still on a rookie deal. I do think that for a team like Chicago that has DeMar DeRozan, that has Zach LaVine, your window, you're trying to make a playoff run now, right? And so, as such, I think there is an element of, what does this guy do for us? Like, how does adding this salary to our books and putting this guy on our roster help us now? I think if you're trying to sell Jaden Springer to somebody, you're looking more at a Charlotte, you're looking at a San Antonio, you're looking at a Detroit, one of those teams that is, the window is not this year, it's not next year, it might not even be 2 years from now. You're planning for 3 years down the road, let's say. So I think those are the types of teams that you're looking for Jaden Springer. Having said that, Drummond, I think, makes it a fascinating case. Obviously not getting much playing time in Chicago, so there's not a lot of value. You can't possibly talk up his value that much because he's not playing that much for your team. So that is, an interesting scenario. He's an upgrade over what they have because he's a good rebounder. He's a decent, rim protector. I do think that we have to factor in James Harden here and what he wants, because James Harden, there's a reason that I think Montrezl Harrell is or it has won the job outright from Paul Reed, partly because Montrezl Harrell can catch on the move. He can, he can set screens, even though he sets walking screens all the time and gets called for offensive fouls. He can screen, he can dive, he can catch on the move and finish at the rim. You want that next to James Harden. Andre Drummond does not have very good hands, so that hurts. That makes it a little bit less of a great fit offensively next to Harden. But Drummond certainly has history here. If you told me that was the guy they got, I would, that's a good get. It's a good upgrade. I will say this. I do know that the Bull, and this isn't your reporting interest, this is just me drawing a connection because a lot of this stuff is connections. Mark Eversley is the GM of the Bulls, and he was influential in the Sixers drafting Thybulle years ago. So I think Drummond made the mid-level exception this past offseason, maybe a little more than that. Thybulle's salary is right around there. Maybe there is interest in that because the Bulls' defense isn't that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Drummond would be fine.
Yeah, it was rumored as well before that the Bulls had some interest in Matisse Thybulle, so I definitely think that would be interesting. Maybe you could work out a trade of something of that sorts, but Drummond's been here. Vanderbilt, in terms of him, it kind of seems like, according to what people have said about him from that side, is that he's not like a traditional big. He's more of a defensive, versatile piece, but the Sixers, I believe, are looking for a backup five. Like you said, somebody with good hands, somebody that can be a rim protector, because Trez just simply is not it, and Paul Reed simply is not it. And if this team goes into the playoffs and they're going up against, a big in the paint, who's going to stop them, right? Like, who's going to be that guy? And you have questions about, say, George Niang defensively, right? So I think they have to make a move. I don't think that's an overreaction. I think they have to. And the fact that they left that roster spot open tells me they have to do something. I don't know what it will be. But I mean, you got to think something's going to happen, right? Obviously they're limited with flexibility, like you talked about with the tax line and all that. But man, something's got to happen here. You can't go in with Trez in the playoffs. I mean, this is what happened in LA with Doc Rivers, Montrezl Harrell. It didn't go well.
Yeah. I would say this. I think with you have to plan for, a Boston, a Milwaukee to make a move, right? Those teams are already in front of you in the standings. They're theoretically going to get better if they make a move. And do you want to be the one team out of the three that doesn't make a move and upgrade the roster?
Yeah.
The team in third place. And that isn't to say that their season is lost if they don't make a move. They're still in an excellent spot. I still think this team doesn't have that many weaknesses in terms of roster construction. But I think the weaknesses are very obvious, and it's only going to get harder. Their March slate is very difficult. The playoffs are going to get even more difficult. Teams are going to try to switch. Try to get the Sixers to switch more and take Montrezl Harrell in space. So it would be very good for you to fortify your backup five.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about you said it multiple times, you don't think there's a lot of flaws in this roster. I would tend to agree with you, but I'm curious on what are your major concerns outside of the backup center. What are you looking at saying, man, this team needs to improve in this margin or get better in this area? And what do you think the team is looking at in general? Are there any other things you're hearing on the inside in terms of, okay, maybe they're looking at this guy. Maybe it's something nobody is really looking at, but maybe they're looking at, say, a backup point guard or whatever it may be, with Maxey not performing too well over the last week or so, with that second unit. What do you think they're looking at, and what's your kind of take on what they need to improve on?
So a couple of weeks ago, I would have told you that getting another defensive-minded wing would have been a big thing for me. I think you can never have too much shooting, although the Sixers are right now the fourth best three-point shooting team in the NBA. So it can't be that big of a deal. I would say right now the focus should be backup center. I just think this team is never going to be a great defensive team on the perimeter because they are the basis of their offense is James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. It just isn't going to be a great defensive team outside. I think DeAnthony Melton has been fine. I think, some other guys Tobias has been workable. Other guys have been good, but the thing that you really can fix is your interior defense. And I think analytics people would tell you that anytime you can make a team into a jump shooting team, you are better off. Even if your perimeter defense isn't great, you're going to live with the odds of a team missing, five or so out of 10 jump shots, more so than you live with them getting to the rim easily. So I would say that I think, the backup big is the main issue. In terms of rumors, this is the time of year where everyone's lying, or everyone is, the wide nets are being cast because you don't want to appear like you're tying yourself to one guy. I think last year was kind of like, for the Sixers especially, it was a little bit of an anomaly because you have James Harden who wanted out, and you knew he specifically wanted to go to Brooklyn, and there was a threat of he would just leave in free agency. So that is an area where you kind of have Brooklyn, against the ropes anyway. But in this world where there isn't anything like that, you do have to play the game and say you're interested in a variety of guys, and even if it isn't true. So there's the Vanderbilt interest that I believe in. Recently, there have been like rumblings of a Rashawn Holmes, and some other guys out there. So it's best not to get bogged down in the rumors. I think the best thing that you can do is try to first go to the fan spo trade machine, because that's what teams use to sort of mock up trade frameworks. Figure out, okay, does this salary work? Does this not work? And then a lot of it is haggling over picks. A lot of trades never come to fruition because you're spending time haggling over who gets the draft compensation, who owes who what. Essentially, but that's another way of saying who got the better player in the deal. And everyone wants to think they got the better player in the deal, unless it's a star trade, in which most times is, in most cases, a trade involving a star, you're not getting a better player in the deal. It's very, very clear who owes the draft picks and who doesn't. Yeah. But when you're looking at a scenario where it's reserves and role players, a lot of times trades don't happen because of who owes what. And no, you owe me picks. No, you owe us picks. That back and forth. So, long way to answer your question is, there's so many names out there right now. The most consistent ones you hear are like a Jared Vanderbilt. Those are the ones you hear the most. I would recommend following Francis Parker because he's very good at aggregating Sixers intel from everyone. So that's what I would do.
Gotcha. All right. So if I had to ask you, what do the Sixers do? If you had to go out on a limb and predict, obviously no reporting, no sources. If you right now had to pick one side or the other, do they make a move, and who does it include?
They will make a move. I think it'll include Furkan and Matisse Thybulle
together.
I don't think it'll be Vanderbilt, but I trust this front office to not make trades that I think you're like left scratching your head. I know the George Hill one didn't pan out, but
Yeah, no, I agree. I trust Daryl Morey to make moves. For some reason, people don't, a lot of people don't trust him. I do. I think he can pull something off. I actually think it'll be Furkan. I think Jaden Springer could be on the move included as well, because I just don't see a role for Jaden Springer. I never understood the pick. I still don't understand it. And I for some reason, I still feel that there's use for Matisse Thybulle. Maybe not in a playoff series, but I think he can be kind of that defensive spark. And I don't know your take on PJ Tucker, but a lot of people have been unhappy with PJ. They feel that there'd be a better fit. I still think he'll come around in the playoffs. I think he'll be valuable. But, the people have been concerned at the 3. And I think Tease can actually fill in at that point sometimes, but he's got to get the minutes. The Sixers win when he plays. He just doesn't play. And it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think people have to be like the whole like, oh, they're 20-0 when he plays, or whatever the thing is. It's not because of him. It's not because of him. It's because the players he's playing with, the opponent you're playing against, whatever. But just watching the game purely, it's very clear that it's not because of Matisse Thybulle's heroics that you're winning games.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is skewed, but I do think, at least from what I've seen, he's a little more of a willing shooter than, like, say, last year. I feel like last year he was terrified to even put the ball up. At least now I'll see him shoot a 3 or 2 threes, but, it's a couple minutes, might get a steal or 2, and then he goes off the floor, and then you don't see him for 2 games.
I think what we're talking about here, more than anything, is there ever a point where you as an opposing coach would be like, you know what, this guy is shooting 47% on 4 threes a game. We have to, should we sell out on him?
Yeah.
Do you think you'd ever be like, no, we have to honor him as a 3-point shooter? No, you'd say, we'll bet against that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. So as it relates to the Sixers, then, are you worried about PJ Tucker at all? I'll ask you that because.
No, I think he's, I think his offensive confidence has regressed a bit because he went through that whole stretch without Harden where he didn't score in like 10 straight games. But I mean, his 3-point shooting from the corners has still been pretty good when he's done it. His defense has been fine. I think when you're an undersized power forward and you're tasked every night with the top, one of the top 2 offensive players in any given team, and it's the regular season, you're going to lose some of those battles. You're going to commit some fouls, but his evaluation does not matter in regular season. It's all about the playoffs. You're not signing him to be a great regular season player. You're worried about what he does for you in the playoffs in a 7-game series against the best offensive players.
Yeah. So I guess at that point, you would say that the Sixers' main trade chip is Matisse Thybulle. That's kind of what they're building. That's what they're working with at this point.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance they trade PJ unless you get blown away by a massive upgrade. I think Joel loves PJ. James obviously is a big proponent of PJ. And I think he's helped kind of change some of the mentality of the team.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. So the last thing I'll end off on here with you is, we talked before the season about this team. We both said that this was the best shot for them to win, that this was the best team. Obviously, they started bad, but they have looked really good at points. There are still people that don't believe, when they lose games like they did yesterday, they blow a 21-point lead like it's drinking water. Where is your mind at in terms of this team? Can they go the distance? Obviously, James Harden has been fantastic. He's been an all-star version of himself. Should be in the all-star game, by the way. Joel Embiid's been fantastic. Really, to me, they just have to stay healthy. And obviously, this is trying to look into the future, but just wanted to get your take because it feels like if the Sixers maybe make a little improvement, like they have a real shot this time. They have to stay healthy, but if they do, I feel like, okay, this is the chance.
I think they have a chance regardless of what they do at the deadline. I mean, everything they've done this regular season has been, except for the last week where they've blown 2 21-point leads, but everything that they've done in terms of just getting their offense and defense all in the top 10, in terms of, their 2-man game and, the way that they've defended at times, everything that I see says that they can be a contender. I think what we're seeing here sometimes is they're just going through the lulls of an 82-game regular season. And that can be, to us, it's like, it's fun to watch, it's fun to cover for me. them, it's just work for me. For them, it's like another game, right? Like,
Yeah.
it gets. I'm sure it gets uh vanilla very quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas the more you go on, especially when you're traveling from, cold city to cold city, you're in the air all the time. This hurts, that hurts. You're sleeping in a hotel bedroom. I'm sure sometimes it gets very easy to, fall into into ruts where you're just not engaged and you're throwing through the motions. And I know we can say they're millionaires, they're this, they're that. The reality is they're humans too. And that's first and foremost. They were born humans, and they were humans before they were basketball players, and we can't keep that. We can't forget about that. So I think the recent lull they've been in, where they've still won like 8 out of 10, but they've had 2 bad losses in the last 5 games, or whatever. I think this is one of the top 2 to 3 teams in the East, and I think if they can get that 1 seed, that 2 seed, and if they can get that 1 seed and make the Bucks and the Celtics play each other in the second round, that would be an ideal scenario. Obviously, playing either of those 2 teams in the second round is a very tough task. But if you get home court, I don't see why you wouldn't be a favorite.
Yeah, no, I think they have to. I think this is the opportunity, like you said. Even some of the other teams in the East have been losing to bad teams. Sixers have a real shot, so I'm excited to see what they'll do at the deadline, if anything. They still have an open roster spot, so it'll be interesting to see how they kind of go through that. But again, your final prediction is that they do make a move. Do you have any names in particular, or do you just think, okay, they're going to make something happen?
I don't have any names in particular. I just think they're going to make something happen. I have a sense it won't be like the names that everyone thinks it will be, because people tend to
Yeah.
I think people tend to sometimes over exaggerate like trade value and whatnot, but just keep hanging in there, and it's going to be over soon. So.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping they get their hands on Andre Drummond. I would love that. I think that is the move to make. I think his value's right there. I was surprised when he went to Chicago. I thought he was going to get a higher payday. I thought he was going to go to maybe a team to be a starter based on how he played. But, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Actually, one more last thing. Your take on the Brooklyn Nets. Are they cooked? Yes or no? Because it's been an interesting couple
I'm
games.
Actually very curious to see where they go. I do know that they are calling around the league right now. Their goal right now is to find a way to add another star. They're looking at Chicago. They have interest in DeMar DeRozan. They're looking at Toronto. They have interest in, Pascal Siakam. We will see what the next couple of days hold. But if they don't get someone to fortify the team with Durant, I think the summer is going to be a very painful summer for the Nets fans.
I think they're done. There's no way they're getting a star. What are they going to give up? What are they going to give up?
Well, they've been trying to remake that team into a 3-team trade that they made for Kyrie. Look, you have 3-and-D salary filler that can be flipped for future assets and equity. I mean, you're targeting teams that aren't very good. Like the Raptors aren't very good. They're probably, they're vacillating between a rebuild and staying mediocre and trying to see the season through. So I think that makes sense to look at them. So we will see what we know what teams want. But look, you go Dinwiddie, you go Picks, you go Cam Thomas, whatever. I have heard that the Raptors would have interest in Ben Simmons. So
I don't know how, but yeah, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, the guy doesn't play. The guy doesn't do anything. He's worse now than he was in Philly for the last year, which is crazy to me. I mean, the whole thing is mind blowing. Craziest player I've ever seen. Craziest situation I've ever seen in sports. But hey, I mean, what do you think? Nick Nurse could turn him into
No, I think it's going to be all on Ben Simmons if he's ever going to become, a better player. It's going to be all about Ben Simmons acknowledging and understanding his shortcomings and deciding that he wants to do something about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, so he'll never really do anything. But anyway, we'll see how it plays out, man. Thank you for coming through to the show, man. Always appreciate your insight and collaboration, man. I hope they do something. I hope they get something done. Be sure to follow Austin on Twitter, man. He does great work, covers the Sixers every game, and keeps them up to date, man. So, yeah, really appreciate your time as always, and hopefully get you back on the show sometime soon, man, after the deadline. Talk about what happened.
Anytime, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. That was Austin Krell, Sixers beat reporter. Interesting things he said. He thinks the Sixers will make a move, but he also thinks that it might not be the move that everybody wants to make. What is your guys' take on that? Let me know. Let me know your guys' take on that. So I don't know how to feel about that. What do you guys think, though, man? What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. What's going on, everybody? We got a ton of people in here. We'll stay on for a little bit longer. I figure we'll take some of the comments in the chat. And, yeah, what do you guys think based on what Austin had to say? Do you think the Sixers are going to make a deadline move? Yes or no? Yes or no? I want them to trade for Andre Drummond. I'm trying to make that as clear as possible, ladies and gentlemen. We just got some of the inside information, but it seems to me that, really nobody really knows what's going on. You know what I mean? Nobody really knows, what the Sixers are going to do. Nobody knows the mindset of Daryl Morey because they haven't said much. The only thing they said was back in, I think it was October, when they said, yeah, we left the open roster spot when we cut Isaiah Joe. We're going to go out and make a move. So what do you guys think is going to happen, man? What do you guys think is going to happen? Could it be Jared Vanderbilt? I mean, there's been confirmed interest. Jared Vanderbilt, Andre Drummond. I really think, look, and you know what's crazy, guys? I predicted that Furkan Korkmaz would get traded. And today he requests out. I think Springer's got to go. And I think they're going to throw in that 2023 second rounder via Charlotte. I mean, you're thinking that's like a top 2 or top 3 in the second round because Charlotte stinks. That pick is going to be good in the second round. I think that's going to give them some leverage. So let me know what you guys think, man. Yes or no? Drop a yes or no. Will the Sixers end up making a move? And if so, let me know who you think they're going to get. Couple announcements, but before we do that, shout out to the sponsor here of today's show. Once again, this one presented by Manscaped. Manscaped has actually got some breaking news on their front as well. It's trade season, but guess what? Manscaped has some breaking news. They just entered the market for beard products. They are revolutionizing men's grooming with their brand new product right here, the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It's a cordless trimmer. It has a rotary wheel, and it can give you 20 different hair cutting lengths, all with just one guard. Just one guard. Yes, you heard that right. 20 different lengths with one guard. It's waterproof. It has a titanium coated T-blade. It's tough on the hair, but smooth on the skin, and it leads to much better efficiency and a smooth process. They give you a whole kit. They literally sent it to me in the mail. It came with scissors, a comb, a brush. They got the beard shampoo and conditioner. They have the beard oil that helps relieve the dryness on your face and the skin beneath, and the beard balm, which helps the overall shape. And once again, comes with all 3 of those free gifts. So check it out. Check out this baby, man. It is a monster. Go down to the description, click the link, and use promo code PhillyTake for 20% off and free shipping amongst checkout. Go check it out, man. Manscaped.com, promo code PhillyTake. This thing's a beast, man. It is a beast. All right. What do you guys think? Yes or no? We have Tyler Redfam in the chat says yes. We have Rory who says yes. We have Evan who says hit the like button. Yeah, guys, please hit the like button if you are in here. We got almost 300 people in here. We still don't have 100 likes. So hit that thumbs up right now, man. Hit that thumbs up button. Thank you all for being here. Once again, we just had Sixers beat reporter Austin Krell on the show, breaking some things down. What do you guys think about what he said about the Brooklyn Nets? I threw that in there at the end. He said that the Nets are trying to get another star, but if they don't, they're going to try to move KD essentially. And that the Raptors could have interest in Ben Simmons. Oh, please. Oh, please. That would be great. That would be great. Let's see. We have Dan in the chats who says Drummond all the way. Rachie says no, because P-Ball Paul will never touch the floor. Secret, what's going on, bro? Says I miss Drummond and Curry. Imagine getting both of them back, man. Imagine that. David says Morey is invisible. Who knows? Would be nice if he would talk to the fans. Well, he usually does. He usually lets the fans know how he is feeling, but this year a little bit different. You know, the Sixers aren't the hot topic of the trade deadline, right? Usually the Sixers are all up in there and at the top of the news page, at the forefront, right? Sixers this, Sixers that. The biggest news is Furkan Korkmaz requesting a trade. If you guys are just tuning back in and you're just getting here, obviously watch the show back, but Furkan Korkmaz requesting a trade. Dang, man. Furkan doesn't like us anymore. Look, I'm sorry, Furkan. I'm sorry, man. You just weren't that good. You're not that good on a championship team. Let's see. We got Sean who says the open roster spot, in my opinion, is a Tobias trade 2-for-1. I don't see them trading Tobias. Not at all. I don't see them trading Tobias at all. I don't think that is in the realm. I think the Sixers look at it and go, okay, we have won a lot of games this year. We went on a couple big win streaks. We just need to make one little marginal improvement and go out there and get past the hump. You know what I mean? Get over the hump. Sixers need to add a backup 5. I was trying to get inside the head of Austin a little bit and see what the mindset is, right? Because the mindset needs to be urgent. I trust Daryl Morey. I trust him to do something. I don't know if it'll be a move that everybody loves and adores, but he has to be sitting there thinking, man, this might be my best shot to win a championship, and that has to motivate him to do something. Yeah, they can talk about the cap and the tax and all that. You need to make a move to get in a championship mode, man. This team is really good. This team is really good. People are sleeping on this Sixers team. Yes, they're going to have a couple bad games like they had yesterday where they blow a lead, and maybe they'll have that in the playoffs, which would suck. But let me tell you something, man. They need to get a backup 5. That's the biggest thing for me. That's the biggest thing for me. So I think something's going to happen. And no, I don't think that KD is even up for the running in Philadelphia. No way. No way. Chrissy says, I like your predictions. I like the trade proposal. You say Thybulle still has a purpose here. PJ only here for now, and performance is iffy. Korkmaz understandable if he does get time. Yeah. My trade proposal is Furkan Korkmaz, Jaden Springer, and a second round pick for Andre Drummond. That is my trade proposal. That's my trade proposal, because Jared Vanderbilt is not going to get traded, in my opinion, just my opinion, unless a first round pick is thrown into the equation. Unless a first round pick is thrown. That's my opinion. I don't think Vanderbilt will get moved, because Danny Ainge doesn't care. He already has enough assets to build his team. And if not, why not keep Vanderbilt? Why not keep him with the rest of the squad that you have? I know Walker Kessler's been emerging, but you have talent. You have picks already. So I think Danny Ainge is going to play hardball, man. That's what I think personally. Rach says 2 pieces away from a championship. I do question some of the rebounding and the wing defense. I think those are the areas the Sixers will look to upgrade. I hope they do something, though. I hope they do something. And I don't agree with Austin 100% when it comes down to Matisse Thybulle, because I still think Thybulle can make an impact. But the thing is, again, if the Sixers don't play him, then essentially they're going to let him walk for free and get no value. I really am starting to think a Thybulle trade could happen in the next day or two. Because when I think about it, Doc's not going to play him much anymore this season. And they gloated about him. They said he was most improved in this and that. And his value hasn't gone anywhere. And if he still has a little bit of trade value left right now, you have to capitalize and try to recoup some draft picks that you've sent out in the last year or two. So I really think that Thybulle could end up getting moved, but I think Furkan has to get moved, and I think Springer could potentially be collateral damage in that move as well if you want to get the guy that you desire. So hopefully Daryl Morey's looking, and whether it's Vanderbilt, Drummond, maybe it's Naz Reid, whoever it is, man, they need to get a backup center because Trez just will not survive, in the playoffs. That's what I think. Let's go. Excuse me. We have a $5 donation from LA Sports Live. Thank you very much, man. It says, are these talks between Philly, the Lakers, and the Pistons legit? Great show. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was interesting. I did see that earlier on Twitter. People were tagging me in that. Also, they were hitting me up in the Discord about that. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, man. I don't think it's legit. I believe they were talking about Tobias Harris in that deal. Hold up. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Be sure you guys are following me on Twitter as well. I will be tweeting out many times over the next couple days as we, prepare for the trade deadline. Be sure you're following the Instagram page and all that, and hop into the Discord, of course. Let me find this Tobias Harris thing. All right, here we go. Let's see. All right, so this is what people are tagging me in. This 3-team trade. Apparently, it came out from some reporter that predicted the Kyrie Irving trade to a T. And it says the Lakers, Sixers, and Pistons are in trade talks. Pistons receive Russell Westbrook and picks. Lakers receive Toby and Furkan. Sixers receive Nerlens Noel, Marvin Bagley, Bojan Bogdanovic. I do not think this will happen. I don't see any way this will happen. I don't know who the guy is or where this came from, but I don't see any way the Sixers trade anybody in their core. I don't think they trade anybody. I think they're going for one last push. I think Doc Rivers is going to be here. I think the whole team's going to be here. I think they're going to try to make one little marginal improvement. I don't see any way that they blow up their core right now, but that's just my opinion. And I'm telling you guys right now, the two most untradeable contracts in the NBA are Ben Simmons and Russell Westbrook. The Lakers had their shot and they whiffed. And apparently the Nets didn't want to trade Kyrie to the Lakers out of spite. I could believe that. Kyrie did the Nets dirty. If you guys have not tuned into this show the last couple of days, first off, I've been having a great time, but man, what he did to the Nets showed how selfish he was. That was bad. And I just don't see a way Westbrook's going to get moved. I really do not at this point. I don't think he's going to Utah. I don't think he's going to Detroit. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to stay right with the Lakers. So, yeah, I don't see it happening. I will say Tobias Harris needs to get better. He was on a hot stretch for about a month and a half, and then he's kind of gone cold the last couple weeks, so he needs to pick it up. But I don't think they're going to move him. I don't. Let's see. Tobias probably a better fit than Bojan, in my opinion. I'd rather have Drummond than Nerlens, says Remo. Yeah, I would. Andre Drummond is the guy I'm targeting. He's making like $3 or $4 million. He's an easy get. He's not playing a lot with the Bulls. He knows the system. He knows how to play behind Joel Embiid. Get me Andre Drummond. That's my move. Kenzo says the core needs a shakeup. It's not working in the playoffs. I think they're going to go one more time with it because I think now, you have a guy in James Harden that is playing at an all-star level that can feed off of Joel Embiid as well, run that two-man game. Last year they were not healthy, and I think they're going to try to go for it one more time and try to put a better surrounding crew around them. But if it doesn't work this year, I do think they're going to blow some part of it up. Because then Tobias would have one more year. I think he could be moved. Obviously, you're going to have to pay Maxey eventually. So, Thybulle's going to be gone if he's not gone in a couple days. So I do think this is the last hoorah with this current constructed core. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's all we got for today. If you are in here right now, thank you for being here, of course. And be sure to hit the like button as well, guys. Be sure to watch us on the playback, you know, tonight, tomorrow, on your drive to work. We had Sixers reporter Austin Krell giving us some of the inside information. We will be live again tomorrow night with 2 special guests this time. We're going to do a collab live stream. I'm sure you all will be excited for that. And we'll be talking more trade stuff, going into some predictions, not just the Sixers, but NBA as well. And we might even take live callers tomorrow. So be sure to tune into that. And yeah, couple more days until the NBA trade deadline. What will the Sixers do? Drop a comment. Let me know. Once again, the show presented by Manscaped. Get yourself one of these Beard Hedger Pro kits. Brand new. They're taking over the game. Thank you all for being here, man. That being said, we will sign off, man. Who will the Sixers get? What will they do? Chiquita says, go Birds. What's up, Chiquita? Go Birds, man. Subscribe to A to Z Philly. That's where I'm covering the Eagles this week. Let's see. Zero says we need Seth Curry, man. Trade Daniel House. I don't know if he can get traded at this point. I mean, who's going to take him? Who's going to take him? I think the move is Andre Drummond, guys. I'm manifesting it. See if it happens, though. You guys have a great one. Catch you all tomorrow night. Peace.